This is Blood Hunt. The vampires have taken over the Marvel Universe. When we last left off, it was revealed that Blade was in charge of the vampires and he managed to kill Doctor Strange, forcing him to live as a ghost. The big question has been, where is Dracula? So today we're going to be covering Dracula Blood Hunt issue number 1, and then we're going to be covering Blood Hunt issue number 2. The dawn is ending. The endless night begins. So Dracula dons his strongest armor and grasps his strongest sword. He stands ready as his followers bow before him, looking up as his servant enters the room. Lord Dracula, the spy has returned. Dracula motions her into the room and orders her to report quickly, as the ritual is almost complete. He moves through the castle as the woman follows. Everything is ready for your arrival in Atlanta. However, the unrest has already begun. Rumors of dissent both here and overseas. Vampires who see the changing tide. She reports. Potential traitors are dealt with immediately, Dracula tells his followers. He looks back at her. And the girl? Brielle Brooks is alive, unaware that she's being watched, the woman reports. So Dracula nods to his servant, who stabs the woman in the back, letting her body fall to the stairs. Good. I do not have the time to clean up any more loose ends. Her blood will be enough to fuel my travel, Dracula says as he turns away from the scene. Meanwhile, over in Atlanta, Brielle and her friends have arrived for school, talking about the upcoming test and other personal issues. But as they walk up to the front doors, Brielle feels a weird sensation. She looks up as the skies darken above their heads, though it is in the middle of the day. Oh no, Brielle whispers, suddenly pain rolling through her head as she falls to her knees. Her friends move to help her, but she motions them away. Don't touch me, I feel strange, the way I do at night, except it's off, Brielle tells them as she gets to her feet, telling them that she needs to figure out what's going on and heads back to her car. It's still getting dark, she says as she looks up into the sky, Brielle reaching for the car door and accidentally tearing it away, her strength acting strange because of the darkened sky. She looks at the door in her hands in surprise. I think someone else is going to have to drive, she says to her friends. Meanwhile, Dracula's dark wizards have worked their magic, transporting him into a crypt in Atlanta. Stepping from the crypt, Dracula finds a woman backing away in terror from a pair of vampires. Stay away, she shouts in fear, and Dracula stalks forward. I need to find someone. A girl, he says to the vampires. The woman takes the moment of distraction to run away into the night. The vampires turn on the vampire warrior, sneering at him. You old or out of your mind, brah? You know how ridiculous you look, right? The other asks. Dracula raises an eyebrow at them for a moment. Suddenly he moves fast, slashing one's head from his shoulders with his claws. Another stares at him for a moment as Dracula moves forward. You will stand because I have use for you. I assume you have friends. Meanwhile, the vampire uprising has begun. With her powers activated by the darkened skies, Brielle begins to fight, helping others as the vampire hordes begin to swarm them. She knocks one vampire to the ground, staking him through the heart and shouting for the civilians to run. But when she turns, another pack is rushing at her from the entrance of the alleyway. You got this. This is what Dad trained me for, Brielle says to herself as she reaches for her sword. But a vampire leaps from above, knocking her to the ground, biting into her arm. The vampire pulls away, looking at his brethren. She's the one whose blood, he begins to state before Brielle drives a stake through his heart. More of the horde reaches her and Brielle drops into a combat stance, but she is no longer alone as Dracula is moving in a blur, his sword cleaving through several monsters with one blow. Brielle stares at him in shock as Dracula turns to face the oncoming threat. Arm yourself, child! Dracula shouts, Brielle drawing her sword, and the two rush into the fight, cleaving vampires apart with powerful blows, cutting through them, turning the alley into a swirl of ash. In a moment, the fight is over. Brielle whirls back, brandishing her sword. I know you! You're Dracula! Dracula nods, lowering his weapon. Then Blade told you of me. At least that part of your education isn't lacking, even if your combat remains less than impressive. Dracula notes. Brielle raises her weapon, ordering Dracula to stay back, but he sneers at her. You must understand me, child. This is not the battle I'm here for, he tells her. But Brielle leaps at him, swiping where Dracula stood moments before. But she hits nothing but missed. Dracula appears behind her, knocking her to the ground. He raises his blade to her throat. You are Brielle Brooks, the daughter of my oldest enemy, the end of his bloodline. The same events that gave you your nocturnal gifts made finding you a child's endeavor. I did not seek you out for vengeance. The world is ending, Dracula tells her. He pauses for a moment, lowering his blade. If you come with me, and we are very lucky, we might still yet be able to save it, he says as he sheaths his weapon. Brielle stands in surprise. You want me to go with you and save the world? She asks, and Dracula nods as his followers step out of the shadows and encircle him. These guys with you? They are the fastest mode of transportation available, Dracula explains, though she still doesn't trust him. Brielle agrees to go, the followers beginning to weave their blood magic and swirls around them. And as the blood flows away, Brielle finds her and Dracula now standing in New York, outside of the Sanctum Sanctorum. But they're not alone. Above them, the vampires are descending from the rooftops, and a guardian devil is watching on. Our story now goes into Blood Hunt, issue number 2. In the impossible city, the Avengers have been defeated. Both Thor and Wanda lay in ruins. Blade is gloating. He turns back to T'Challa. How do you feel? He questions. And T'Challa hisses at him through brand new vampire fangs, growling to his vampire lord. Blade stalks forward, leaning in. Go on. Try and fight me, Black Panther. Try to fight the will of the Lord of the Vampires. You might as well be fighting the tides, Blade says with a smile. With the impossible city secured, Blade turns back to his blood coven. Find me the girl! Meanwhile, in the dark alleyways of New York City, a mother is holding up a stun gun. She's trying to protect her 2 sons. Stay back, the oldest says, brandishing the pipe that he holds at the vampires that are stalking towards them. Hey, he said stay back, Brielle says as she swings her sword, the daughter of Blade, slashing through the neck of the first vampire, killing him. The others all rush at her, but then there's a sweep of blinding speed and they all fall to the ground, burning to ash. We do not have time for this, Dracula says, stepping through the ashes. You're too important to all of this, Brielle. To risk your life for the insignificant, Dracula says as the civilians rush past him. He reminds Brielle that he brought her to the city for a reason. We are vulnerable, you stupid child. The blood hunt has been lost upon the world, Dracula reminds her, and they turn as more voices echo from the shadows of the alleyway. You're being hunted. Hello, daughter of Blade. Hello, Dracula. The voice says, and the two of them look back in shock. Meanwhile, uptown, Tigra and Hunter's Moon are still fighting against the vampire hordes, trying to get to the Sanctum Sanctorum. As the last vampire falls, Tigra motions to Hunter's Moon to push forward. We have to find Dr. Strange. He's our best chance at dealing with this mess, Tigra says to her friend, when suddenly they both look up as Spider-Man drops on them. Hey, did you say Dr. Strange? Miles asks as the heroes jump back in surprise at seeing him. After introductions are made, Tigra nods her head. Yeah, we're going to Dr. Strange. Oh, thank God, I have no idea where his house is, Miles tells her. They all round the corner and Tigra motions to the large Sanctum Sanctorum. Yeah, it's real inconspicuous, Spider-Man, she tells him. Okay, I'm new here. No one tells me these things, Miles shouts at her. Hunter's Moon patting him on the shoulder. Don't feel bad. I didn't know where it was either, he tells him. Tigra bangs on the door and shouts for Strange. At that moment, his ghost pushes its head through the door. Ah, Tigra, welcome, Dr. Strange's ghost says, motioning them inside. As they move through the halls, Tigra points out that Strange should be helping instead of floating around in his astral form. Well, I'm in my astral form due to some complications with my corporeal self, Strange tells her, motioning to the parlor where Clea is currently holding the vampiric Dr. Strange in a spell. Things have gone to hell here as well. Meanwhile, Dracula and Brielle watch as the Blood Coven stalks towards them. Dracula raises his sword to the team leader. Bloodstorm 1. It's been quite some time, clone. Bloodstorm nods. Are you impressed with how I've grown, Gene Father? What a monster I've become, Bloodstorm responds. Dracula looks to the others, commanding them to kneel before their lord. But the vampires, they shake their heads, explaining that there is a new lord of the vampire nation. We serve the true lord. We serve the true philosophy of our kind, Bloodstorm hisses. But suddenly they are not alone, as the remnants of the Avengers descend upon them. Here's our philosophy. We have a lot to avenge, Captain Marvel says. The Blood Coven moves to attack, with Megrim preparing to mentally stun the heroes. But in a blaze of movement, she's gone. The vampires all look up in shock as Vision flies her away, explaining that his synthetic brain is weak against her powers, but he can cycle his own brain patterns to counteract her. Captain Marvel lunges forward, hitting Bloodstorm hard, knocking the leader into a wall, while Vision takes Megrim above the black clouds, allowing the sun to eradicate her. Now that they haven't been ambushed, the Avengers are pushing their attack, able to counteract the vampires' superpowers, until Vision descends once more and bathes the area in stored solar energy. You sucker punched us before, but even at half strength, we're still the Avengers, Captain Marvel says as she sends a blast into the air that separates the dark clouds and allows the sunlight to beam down on them, forcing the Blood Coven back and opening a portal to retreat. Next time, Avengers, next time will be for everything, Bloodstorm promises before disappearing. Sam Wilson rushes forward. I want to follow, but Carol stops him with a hand on his shoulder. We'll get the others back. We'll take the Impossible City back, and we'll save our friends, Carol promises. Brielle turns to the Avengers and tells them that she and Dracula need to get to the Sanctum Sanctorum. Once there, they're greeted by Strange's astral form and the other heroes. We have to move quickly and plan. Already, we've been gathering forces. Spider-Man and my colleagues from the Midnight Mission, Strange says as he motions to the heroes in the parlor. Upon seeing Spider-Man, Brielle rushes across the room. Spider-Man, finally someone I know. Listen, with all of this going down, I can't find my dad, Brielle says to her friend, having recently done a vampire adventure with Miles. But Miles suddenly begins to growl, grabbing at his mask, ripping it off to reveal vampiric fangs as he hisses at her. I hope you guys enjoyed Dracula Blood Hunt Issue 1 and Blood Hunt Issue 2. We're going to continue to bring you all of Blood Hunt because I need to make a giant video eventually. So make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.